The streets of Lunarita were alive with energy as Kemi navigated her car through the vibrant city, her mind set on a day of shopping and relaxation. The towering buildings and colourful market stalls reflected the essence of the city's bustling charm. She smiled to herself, imagining the new outfits she would add to her wardrobe, unaware that her life was about to take a tragic turn. As she drove through the crowded roads, the honking of horns and chatter of pedestrians filled the air. But in an instant, everything changed. A blinding flash of light and the deafening screech of tires pierced the air as Kemi's car collided with another vehicle. Her body was thrown forward, and darkness consumed her vision. Moments passed, and when the world around her finally quieted, Kemi lay unconscious on the road. Bystanders gathered, their worried faces peering down as sirens blared in the distance. An ambulance arrived, rushing her to Voma Hospital. Unbeknownst to her, this accident would change her life forever. Inside the sterile walls of the hospital, Kemi lay motionless. Her body connected to machines that monitored her condition. The accident had left her in a deep coma. Her family gathered around praying for a miracle. Days turned into weeks, and though her physical wounds began to heal, her mind remained locked in the shadows. The doctors reassured her family that time was needed, but the uncertainty weighed heavily on their hearts. A month passed, and there was still no sign of Kemi awakening. Her mother, Bola, refused to leave her side, holding her daughter's hand, whispering words of encouragement. It was a surreal experience for them all, knowing that the energetic, vibrant young woman they once knew was trapped in a world of silence. One quiet morning, the steady rhythm of the machine seemed to shift. Kemi's eyelids fluttered ever so slightly, a movement so small that it nearly went unnoticed. Bola gasped, squeezing her daughter's hand. The nurses rushed in, their faces lit with cautious optimism as they called the doctors. Minutes later, Kemi's eyes opened, blinking slowly as she adjusted to the harsh hospital lights. Her mind swirled in confusion. The last thing she remembered was the streets of Lunarita. Now, unfamiliar faces and sterile smells filled her senses. She tried to move, but a sharp pain radiated through her body, leaving her weak and disoriented. Tears filled Bola's eyes, both relieved and heartbroken by Kemi's state. She whispered softly, "You're awake, my love. You're back." But Kemi's journey had only just begun. As the days passed, Kemi slowly regained her awareness, though her body felt foreign to her. Doctors visited her regularly, explaining her condition and the extent of her injuries. She listened in disbelief as they informed her that the accident had caused severe damage to her spine. Her legs, once strong and agile, were now unresponsive. Despair washed over her. She tried to lift her legs, to feel something, anything, but nothing happened. Panic set in as Kemi realized the full extent of her disability. The world she once knew, the independence, the freedom, seemed to crumble before her eyes. Her heart raced as she looked at her mother, her voice barely a whisper. "I can't walk, Mom. I can't walk." The words hung in the air like a sentence, and for the first time since the accident, the weight of her reality became unbearable. Bola held her daughter's hand tighter, tears brimming in her own eyes, but she remained strong. "We'll get through this, Kemi. You're alive. That's what matters now." Her words, though meant to comfort, felt distant to Kemi, who was drowning in her fear. The doctors had recommended physical therapy, but Kemi could hardly fathom a life confined to a wheelchair. She wasn't ready to accept this new reality. Despite her feelings, Kemi's family remained her pillar of strength. Her father, Ad, visited each day after work, sitting quietly by her side, offering silent support. Her younger brother, Tayo, brought humor and lightness to the room, trying to lift her spirits with jokes and stories about his day. Yet, no matter how much they tried to help, Kemi felt as though she was sinking deeper into despair. 2 weeks after she woke up, the physical therapy sessions began. The hospital therapist, a kind woman named Amara, introduced herself with a warm smile, but Kemi could hardly meet her eyes. The thought of therapy filled her with dread. "We'll take it one step at a time," Amara reassured her. But Kemi's frustration boiled beneath the surface. Each attempt to move, each exercise felt like a reminder of her limitations. She couldn't understand why her body wouldn't obey her mind's commands. The frustration grew with every passing day. "I don't want to do this," she snapped at Amara one morning, tears filling her eyes. But Amara remained calm, offering Kemi patience and understanding. "It's okay to feel this way, but you're stronger than you know." While Kemi struggled with her recovery, detectives began their work on the hit-and-run case. Detective Olumide, a seasoned investigator, took the lead. He was methodical, determined to uncover the truth about what had happened that fateful day. Witnesses had described a black sedan speeding away from the scene, but the details were hazy. Lunarita's streets were crowded, and the trail seemed cold. Still, Olumide pressed on. He visited nearby shops, hoping to find security footage that might reveal the driver. Each day, he reported back to the station with minimal leads, but he refused to give up. He knew this case was more than just an accident. It was a crime, and the person responsible needed to be held accountable. Weeks passed, and Kemi slowly made progress. Though each day felt like a battle, she could move her arms with more ease, and her upper body strength improved, but her legs remained unresponsive. The doctors were honest. There was a chance she would never walk again, though they encouraged her to remain hopeful. But hope, Kemi found, was elusive. Meanwhile, Detective Olumide's persistence paid off. A grainy security camera from a nearby shop captured the black sedan speeding away just after the accident. The license plate was partially visible. It wasn't much, but it was something. He and his team ran the partial plate through the city's database, narrowing down potential suspects. Kemi spent long hours in her hospital room, staring at the ceiling, replaying the accident over and over in her mind. The sound of screeching tires echoed in her ears. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about that day, but she couldn't remember the details clearly. Her mind was a blur of fear and confusion. Her family visited daily, offering love and support. But there were moments when Kemi felt utterly alone. The silence in the room was deafening. She had always been independent, always in control. Now, she felt as though she had lost everything. She didn't know how to live in this new version of her life. One afternoon, during a particularly difficult therapy session, Kemi managed to lift her legs slightly for the first time. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The small victory brought tears to her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was hope. Amara noticed a shift in Kemi's attitude. "That's the spirit," she said, her voice full of encouragement. "You're stronger than you think, Kemi." The words resonated with her, and though the road ahead was still daunting, Kemi began to see the possibility of a future beyond her hospital bed. Detective Olumide's team tracked down the owner of the black sedan from the security footage. It belonged to a man named Femi Adekunle, a businessman with no prior criminal record. Olumide approached him for questioning, and while Femi appeared cooperative, something about his demeanor made the detective suspicious. Femi claimed that his car had been stolen on the day of the accident, and that he had reported it to the police. The story was plausible, but Olumide wasn't convinced. He had a gut feeling that Femi knew more than he was letting on. But without solid evidence, there was little he could do. The case seemed to hit a dead end, but Olumide wasn't ready to give up just yet. Kemi's progress in therapy was slow, but steady. Each small victory, lifting her legs, standing with support, was a reminder that she still had control over her body. Though she had a long way to go, Kemi was beginning to accept her new reality. She started focusing on what she could do, rather than what she couldn't. With her family's support, Kemi began to shift her mindset. She still had dark days, but they were less frequent. She knew she had to keep fighting, not just for herself, but for the people who loved her. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time she felt like she was moving in the right direction. Detective Olumide continued his investigation, and as he visited the hospital to update Kemi and her family, he couldn't help but notice Kemi's resilience. Though their interactions were brief, he admired her strength and determination. He found himself thinking about her more often than he should. Kemi, on the other hand, appreciated Olumide's dedication to the case. She could see the seriousness in his eyes every time he spoke about finding the person responsible for the accident. There was a quiet bond forming between them, built on mutual respect and an unspoken understanding of their individual battles. Just when things were beginning to look up, Kemi experienced a sudden setback. During a therapy session, she attempted to stand without support, but lost her balance, falling hard to the ground. The pain was excruciating, both physically and emotionally. It felt like all the progress she had made had been wiped away in an instant. Back in her hospital room, Kemi was overwhelmed with frustration. She felt like giving up, convinced that she would never walk again. Amara visited her later, offering gentle encouragement. But Kemi couldn't shake the feeling of defeat. "Why bother?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'll never be the same." Despite the setback, Olumide pressed forward with his investigation. He wasn't ready to let Femi Adekunle off the hook. After reviewing the security footage again, he noticed something odd. Femi's car had been parked in a location that was inconsistent with his story about the theft. It raised more questions than answers. Olumide decided to dig deeper into Femi's background. He reached out to contacts within the business world and found whispers of financial troubles and shady dealings. It seemed Femi had more to hide than he let on. Armed with this new information, Olumide was ready to confront him again. Kemi's fall had shaken her confidence, but she wasn't ready to give up entirely. After some time to recover, she returned to her therapy sessions, determined to push through the pain. With Amara's guidance, she slowly regained her balance. Each session became a test of her resolve, but Kemi refused to let fear control her. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult session, Kemi managed to take a few steps with the help of a walker. It was a monumental achievement, and though her legs trembled with the effort, she felt a surge of pride. She wasn't the same person she had been before the accident, but she was still Kemi, strong, determined, and resilient. Detective Olumide decided it was time to confront Femi Adekunle once again. This time, armed with the inconsistencies in his story and the whispers of his financial troubles, Olumide was more direct. He pushed Femi for answers, and under the pressure, Femi began to crack. It turned out that Femi had been involved in illegal dealings and had been on his way to a meeting the day of the accident. In his panic, he fled the scene, hoping to avoid any consequences. The guilt had been weighing on him ever since. With Femi's confession, Olumide finally had the breakthrough he needed. With Femi's confession, the pieces of the puzzle finally fell into place. He was arrested and charged, bringing some sense of justice to Kemi and her family. Though the legal process would take time, Kemi felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The person responsible for her suffering would face the consequences of his actions. As the weeks passed, Kemi continued her therapy, making slow but steady progress. She knew her journey was far from over, but with each step, she felt a little stronger. She had faced unimaginable challenges, but she had survived. Still held a future for her, one where she would reclaim her life, no matter how difficult the road ahead. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through Kemi's story of resilience and recovery. Life can change in an instant, but it's how we face those challenges that truly defines us. Kemi's strength and determination remind us all that even in the darkest moments, hope and perseverance can lead to new beginnings. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for more incredible stories, and remember, every challenge is an opportunity to grow. See you in the next video.